Hey, look, we save hard drinks in here for men who want to get drunk fast, and we don't need any characters around to give the joint atmosphere. Is that clear?
According to my calculations, we're about 6 days in to this Ukrainian invasion.
It's only been 6 days.
6 or 7 days. It was last Thursday morning. I take no pleasure in being right about these things. But when the president of the United States was saying they're gonna invade, I couldn't think of any reason he would be saying that, because it just seemed so risky to say something so directly. And he wasn't saying our intelligence indicates,
Right.
According to our best estimates or anything like that. He was like, no, they're gonna invade. That's what our intelligence says. And I couldn't think of any reason that a president of the United States would say that unless they were sure that it was going to happen.
Right.
I believe him when he says, he was hoping by doing that he might deter them from invading. Like,
Right.
oh, well, now that we're going to invade, we're going to not invade and make you look silly. And
Right. Like, we know what you're up to.
yeah. So, when I put the note out last Friday or Saturday, week and a half ago, and said it looks likely that Russia's going to invade Ukraine, probably Monday or Tuesday morning, I had read an article that said the reason Putin went to the opening ceremonies of the Olympics was so that he could meet with Xi Jinping, and they probably made some sort of agreement, like, just don't do it before the end of the Olympics. I don't want you to upstage the Olympics.
Give us this.
But then, see, that's what idiots they are at PR. It's like nobody remembers the Olympics now. It's like there were some Olympics. We don't.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers, right? But so we'll get you caught up on where things stand. A lot of you that are doom scrollers like me probably already know some of this information, but you haven't heard it from me and Paul.
That's right.
And don't you forget, this is just the whiskey talking.
Cheers.
So apparently Russia, this is from improvethenews.org. Find the link in the show notes. Russia has apparently ramped up. They said vamped up. I read this. It says Russia has apparently vamped up efforts to encircle Kyiv.
Well, it's going to be that kind of party.
Wait, that's Vogue.
That's Vogue. Vamping is like, getting kind of sexy at it.
Oh, is that what vamping is? I couldn't remember what vamping is, but then I thought, I don't know if that's the wrong word. I mean,
it also means stealing.
It also means apparently refurbish. In jazz and popular music, it's a short, simple introductory passage. The upper front part of a boot or shoe. Okay, I think they used the wrong word. All right, anyway. We'll say ramped up. Russia has apparently ramped up efforts to encircle Kyiv with a 40-mile-long convoy of military vehicles just 20 miles from the city. Meanwhile, a deadly attack reportedly took out the city's main TV tower on Tuesday, killing 5. So I'm guessing you knew all that already from TikTok.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I follow 2 things on Twitter. One is the Kyiv Independent, which is at Kyiv Independent, KYIV Independent. And the other one I follow is a reporter from the Kyiv Independent, Ilya Ponomarenko. I guess we're all going to get better at pronouncing Ukrainian and Russian names.
This is true. We're all going to become experts.
And he is at IAPONOMARENKO. I'll put both of those in the show notes. But yeah, I knew about both of those things through that. I saw the video of the TV tower being attacked. Like, how Cold War era is it that the Russians think, we will take out the TV tower, then they will not have any information?
To me, that's part of what we talked about before about how different this is. Because ever since I said that to you, I've been thinking about what I meant by when I said it's more different than anything else we've been through. We talked about how maybe it's a race thing, culture thing, whatever, and the threat of World War III thing. But it's just that it is a small world now. It is a very
Yeah.
small world, and there is more than one access to the information. And taking out a TV antenna, oh no, the three grandmas that still have regular antenna TV in Ukraine are gonna be pissed because they're gonna miss their soaps.
If anything, they should have left that TV tower up because, they would want to be reporting state sponsored TV from Russia. I heard, again, in the realm of we don't know what's real, what's not real. I heard that and maybe you saw something on TikTok. Somebody said the internet went down like when this invasion started, but then it came back up. And then, of course, because Elon Musk is Elon Musk, he came out and tried to take credit. Now, I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah,
but he was like, "Oh yeah, we put a bunch of Starlink satellites over Ukraine so they could have internet access."
I would not put that past him.
If true, good on him, right? For all of his other faults, and he's got plenty. Good on him. And again, it wasn't him; it was his company. He happens to be the head of the company. He didn't pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I want satellites over there, and here's their coordinates and all that." Yeah. No, his company was like, "Hey, you know what we could do, boss?" And he was probably like, "Yes, do that, and I'll take credit."
He's the Thomas Edison of the current, inventor, billionaire elites. The thing is, though, about that real quick is he just made his sales pitch.
Yeah.
And it was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you that, and the reason it's a good sales pitch is the thing you just said. By the way, everybody, Dan Carlin just released an episode of his political podcast called Common Sense. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Obviously I'm a Dan Carlin fanboy. But
I've noticed.
It really summarizes a lot of what he says may sound familiar. I promise you, he had not said anything prior to last night when he published this podcast. The fact that it sounds similar to what I've been saying just means I'm just as smart as Dan Carlin. That's what that means.
That's right.
But he made the point in his podcast, which is a great point. Another to your question about why is this different, or to your point about why this is different. 25 years ago, Russia could have invaded Ukraine, and it might have made the headlines a couple of times. The president, our president, the U.S. president, might have made a couple of speeches. Sternly, there would have been some sternly worded diplomatic cables. Maybe a few sanctions, but we would know nothing about what's going on the ground. Whether Ukraine, we would all probably be sitting here and forget the political situation 25 years ago. I'm talking about the technological situation 25 years ago. We would have all been kind of like, Ukraine, isn't that part of Russia? What's going on? Maybe they're just putting down a rebellion. Right. And Russia would be able to control the narrative because the information that would be getting out would basically be coming from the Russians. Right. And we'd all be like, yeah, this is post-Cold War. There was probably some kind of rebellion. Yeah. I don't know. I'd probably side with the Ukrainians, but whatever. How about those Olympics?
Right. Now the internet has turned the whole thing into a war room with cute cat videos.
Yeah, exactly. Is that one of the things you wrote down?
Yes, that's one of my.
Okay, good.
The top one.
It's on your list.
Actually, I was gonna make a meme out of it on Facebook, but I haven't had time yet.
All right, so that's the first bullet.
Yeah.
Then in Kharkiv, which if you've been following, Kharkiv is that town that's farther east in Russia. Kyiv's the capital. Kharkiv is farther east. Supposedly they're mostly Russian-speaking people there. Russian, there's more affinity to Russia over there because they're closer and there's the culture and the language. But the Russians still haven't been able to take that town because the people are like, But in Kharkiv, heavy shelling has continued with at least 10 civilians reportedly killed on both Monday and Tuesday and dozens injured. Russia may soon launch a ground offensive to seize the city. I mean, there's nothing good about any of this, but if there's any, like, if they're still reporting 10 civilians killed, we at least know it's not in the thousands at this point.
Yeah, isn't it crazy though that we know 10 civilians were killed? Before, like you said, 25 years ago, it would have been, they would have just shown a little bit of footage and talked about,
Collateral damage.
collateral damage. And now we can pin it down to the number of people because information travels so fast.
Yeah. In the south, Russian troops have likely secured control of Kherson and claim to have completed the land and sea encirclement of Mariupol, though Ukraine denies this. So we're in the stage now, amazingly. So the invasion started in earnest. It really, to me, it started like Tuesday because that's when they went into the Donbass region.
Yeah, they were there, and we all thought it was a bluff.
Yeah,
Look at us, we're strong. Yeah, we were hoping it was a bluff.
Hoping against hope, right? But then, somebody said, this is one of the a quote I heard. It's famously said, Putin plays chess, not checkers. He's always playing like this 3D chess game, right?
I mean, the Russians are known for their chess. Right?
Yeah. And somebody said he's gone now from playing chess to playing poker.
Strip poker, if you can.
Yeah. And we'll get to, was that one of your bullets?
No, I was just thinking about the picture where he's bare-chested riding the bear, or the horse. Yeah.
So we'll get to
he's been playing strip poker for a while.
Yeah, no kidding. And we'll get to Putin here in a minute because once we get caught up here, we'll get to some of this. What is really what's he doing? So this let's see, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So today, this is like day 6 or day 7, depending on when you count the beginning. They still haven't taken control of a city.
Right.
Now, you could get back to comparisons with the U.S. invasion of Iraq, excuse me, in 2003. And some people have tried to do this, but there's really no comparison. The strategy in Iraq was to bypass all the major cities, take Baghdad first.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to go back and look, but I would say we were a couple of weeks into that war in 2003 before the U.S. took any major cities. But that was the plan from the beginning. Like they said that, and the U.S. supply. I've been trying to think more internationally. I got to stop saying when I refer to the U.S. I'm going to stop saying our. It doesn't make me less patriotic. It's just I'm trying to think more globally. Anyway.
Well, just by saying our, you are thinking globally. Put it in your head that way.
Only if I'm talking about citizens of the world. So the U.S. supply lines remained intact. Everything, it was completely different. We could do a whole show on how that was different, but now we're starting to hear that perhaps the Russians have taken control of Kherson. But that, again, that's one of those cities over in the east. It's like, well, didn't they already have that one?
Right.
Congratulations, you took a city that people were like, weren't you already in charge there? But the citizens are fighting back, which the Russians didn't expect. Okay, meanwhile, Belarusian forces are thought to have joined the war in support of Russia, despite denial from the Belarusian president, Lukashenko. That's interesting. I mean, I find the Belarusian point of view here interesting. We haven't heard much about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're their own country, just like Ukraine.
Right.
They've had similar internal strife over should we align with Russia, should we be more independent, just like Ukraine has had.
Mm-hmm.
But the Belarusian Russian aligned folks have been able to remain in power. It's unclear to me whether the citizens of Belarus feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
So by them joining the conflict, what are the citizens of that country going to do? Well, historically, it hasn't gone well for any citizen who's tried to come out and protest this Lukashenko regime.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gone well at all. People have been killed, imprisoned, poisoned, all that stuff. So that'll be interesting to watch. At least 136 people, including 13 children, have been killed in Ukraine since the start of the invasion, according to the UN. And the UN's court, their high court, has set dates for hearings next week as Ukraine's request that it order Russia to halt. I'm like, what? Okay. That UN court, I'm just like, I don't know who's going to win, who's going to lose, but the UN will certainly be seen as maybe just take security off the table for the UN, just negotiate trade deals and try to figure out climate change. But they're pretty much useless when it comes to people invading each
Right.
other.
You focus on your strengths.
And then finally, Zelensky, Captain Ukraine,
Yeah.
has called on Putin to stop bombing Ukrainian cities before any meaningful ceasefire talks can even start. He's also urged NATO members to impose a no-fly zone to stop the Russian Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
That would
Do you think that would do anything though?
Well, I think a no-fly zone would certainly help the Ukrainians quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It would be, to me, a major escalation, and I hope they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I believe in this game of chess
Or poker.
or poker, I think it would signal, or at least to me, it would signal a major escalation. Because a no-fly zone means now you've got non-Ukrainian. In fact, when that story popped up yesterday or whenever it was, that the EU countries, some EU countries may be donating some jet fighters to Ukraine so that Ukrainian pilots could go use them in the war, I thought, okay. On one hand, you could go, well, they're already, countries are already sending weapons. The U.S., Germany, Netherlands, they're already sending weapons. Is a fighter jet, would that be considered like, okay, it's one thing to send these tank killing things, but it's just a weird situation we're in, Like, is a fighter jet considered? So even when they were talking about sending fighter jets, I was like, oh man, that almost seems like ratcheting it up.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, but when you're looking at a 40-mile long convoy headed your way, they ain't gonna pay no toll. So you got to do something, and an airstrike would basically end it.
Well, define end it. End what?
The convoy.
Okay, but then what?
Well,
what does Russia do?
Well, I know. I'm just saying. I wasn't saying that was the solution. I was just saying that would end it.
So I think with that convoy that I find interesting, and again, who knows? I heard an interview with one of the Ukrainian citizens that grabbed a rifle and joined the defense force.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the question was, who's winning? And he said, well, Ukraine is winning the information war.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's absolutely right. And then the reporter says, is Ukraine winning the physical war?
Right.
And he says, well, I can't really say anything about that. I don't want to give away any details or anything. And that told me everything I needed to know, which is what we're in the middle of, my belief, what we're in the middle of right now is Ukraine would have been done within a day or two if they hadn't been able to get the initiative in the information war.
Mm-hmm.
Zelensky doing what he's done, average Ukrainian citizens, TikTok, Twitter, everything that's been happening that shows the Ukrainians are holding their own is the reason that this thing isn't over yet, I believe.
So who are you saying would end up on top then? Were you saying that
Russia, for sure.
Russia would have basically, okay.
Yeah, because by now they would have done what they did in Chechnya and Georgia.
Right.
Which they may still do. And they would just be like, screw this, we're taking over. Especially because since Ukraine appears to be holding their own and everybody's like rallying around them because everybody loves an underdog who gets a good punch in the nose against the
Right.
enemy,
Right.
against the, it's like Rocky IV, right? Everybody loved it when Rocky's so much shorter than Ivan Drago and he like punches him and everybody's like, whoa, the little guy's, winning. Everybody loves that, right?
Yeah.
And since everybody loves that and everybody's rallying around Ukraine, that's how you get all these sanctions, like these unprecedented is a word you hear too much, especially in these past 3 years of 2020.
Right.
But the reason you're getting the international community like really socking it to Russia right now,
Mm-hmm.
I believe, is the fact that Ukraine's holding their own. If Russia had been able to roll in,
Right.
and we didn't hear that Ukraine was holding their own, we didn't have Zelensky. If Zelensky had run away to Germany or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
we'd all be like, well, it's only a matter of days or weeks, but Russia's going to win this thing, right? So why bother antagonizing them more? Maybe they'll stop at Ukraine. It would have been like the Sudetenland, right? Maybe Hitler will stop in the Sudetenland and won't invade Poland. It would have been like that, I think. But
Yeah.
if the Sudetenland had TikTok and could have shown what was going on and like, hey, we're really giving them hell here, then the world might have been like, hey, maybe we can stop Germany, here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my point. So when we see things like, wouldn't it be great if, so I've seen, it's just funny the kind of people you see this stuff from because it's predictable.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
people who still think there are, I heard this one from Neil deGrasse Tyson just the other day on climate change. Somebody said, what do you say to climate change skeptics? Like people who are skeptical that climate change is real and is being caused by humans. And he said, first of all, I don't elevate them to the level of skeptic. He's like, skeptic is a level they don't deserve. It's
Right.
ignorant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There is no such thing as a climate change skeptic. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So there are climate change skeptics, and those are good. Well, you want those because they're going to challenge the science. They're going to bring other science. They're going to suggest other experiments we could be doing, stuff like that.
It's how we
He's
get
talking about
stuff
the
done.
people who read one book and think they're especially. So I got this friend.
Read a book at all.
I got this friend from college who's a brilliant engineer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he works in an oil refinery and thinks he has any moral authority to talk about climate change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's not real because we need to keep burning fossil fuels. So anyway, it's people like that, like him and a few other people who are like, Biden's not doing enough. We should send troops to Ukraine. We should bomb Ukraine. We should have a no-fly zone in Ukraine. And I'm like, dudes, Russia still has nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Putin, we have no idea what his state of mind is. The entire Cold War, we were able to assume rational actors on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all the moves we would make assumed that the other side didn't want to obliterate themselves.
Yeah.
Right? We don't know what's going on in Putin's head right now.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost as if people have forgotten the devastation that a nuclear war would cause.
You know
And
what's
they almost think that this whole remember MAD, mutual assured destruction.
Yeah.
Which to me, the first time I heard that, I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard in my life. That's like calling each other's bluff is what you're doing, and that's freaking dangerous with nuclear weapons.
It's like when we were kids and you would close your eyes, you'd take like some like an electrical cord or something and just close your eyes and just start swinging it and walking toward your brother, right?
What kind
I did
of
that.
childhood? I was like, what kind of childhood did you have?
I did that. And my brother still remembers it. He's like, I thought you were crazy. I'm like, that was the idea. That's the only way I could get you to back off, But, think about this. Like you said, it seems like it's almost like people have forgotten, right? Like we were coming of age. We were turning 18, 19, 20, as we heard in software history, when the Cold War ended.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe 10 years younger than us, people who were 8, 10 years old when the Cold War ended, maybe they have an inkling of a memory, but not really. We're really only talking about people maybe 5 years younger than us. So maybe 45, mid to late 40s. Anybody who's not in their mid to late 40s of course they don't remember because they didn't grow up during that time, right?
Right.
So now we've got a generational thing going on. If you're a millennial, you're Gen Z, love you guys.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really Gen X who remembers. It's the next generation that's kind of like, we're supposed to have done whatever it is you do to keep people from forgetting shit.
Mm-hmm.
Or to
Mm-hmm.
say we need a societal memory. And if you're like thinking, oh, let's just go bomb, the Russians in Ukraine and we'll win and then we'll go home and Putin will go, well, I didn't think of that. I, yeah. Oh, I guess I'll try something else later. No, that's not how that's going to go.
And they wonder why nothing phases us.
Yeah. So there's the question of what's going on with Putin, right? And we'll get to it in soft core history, but the long story short, if you look at it, if you believe the press,
Mm-hmm.
the Russian press is basically, we made some assurances at the end of the Cold War, the West did, that there wouldn't be an expansion of NATO toward Russia's borders. And if you know anything about Russian history, you know that there's a if you can pass trauma from one generation to the next, Russia's
Mm-hmm.
nothing but trauma, right? Because they've been
Mm-hmm.
invaded, and those invasions were in the tens of millions of people killed. So
those Europeans have long memories.
well, we're talking about relatively recent stuff.
Well,
And
yeah,
so,
but I mean, in general.
in general, absolutely. But if you're Russia, your I heard this one the other day. It was actually a Ukrainian person saying, my grandmothers told me stories about Kyiv being shelled
Mm-hmm.
during World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and just how the city was leveled and how many people died and how awful it was when the Germans came through,
Mm-hmm.
right? My grandmother,
Yeah.
she was
Well,
saying, right?
that's
It
the
don't
thing
take a
about.
long memory to be like, this is what happens when we let people invade us, right?
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
It'd be like your grandfather telling you stories about when the Russians came through Chicago,
Well, my dad's told me stories about when World War II ended. So
Yeah.
people can't
Yeah.
figure out when I talk to them. They're like, how old is your family? I'm like, well, I have, my parents remember World War II.
Yeah.
Most people don't have that. Their grandparents do. Hell, my grandfather remembered World War I. So,
And Vladimir Putin and a lot of the leadership of the Soviet Union he's 69 years old, right?
mhm.
So born in the 50s. That sound about right?
Seems legit.
Yeah. My mom was born in 47. Yeah. So yeah, born in the early 50s, grew up during the Cold War with his parents telling him stories about what happens if you're not vigilant,
Mhm.
right?
I think that's what I meant by long memories. Just there's a short chain because their ages are a lot more stretched out than ours are generally.
So then he's watching NATO get closer and closer. And so as the story goes, we had to do something. Russia has to do something preemptively. They also have this weird story about how, and it's mostly propaganda. I don't even think they believe it, but like how Ukraine was taken over by Nazis. And like, it's just like the Nazification. And like, Zelensky's Jewish. He had a couple relatives die in concentration camps.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't think he's a Nazi. But anyway, long story short, that's their side of the story. The problem is it doesn't make any sense from any other perspective. So the invasion was probably, my guess is done for authoritarian reasons, let's say, but it's backfired. So there's this story, and I think this will be my last point.
Okay.
Because we're pretty far into this.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make two more points. One is Twisted Sister with their famous song, We're Not Gonna Take It.
Mm-hmm.
Some anti-maskers tried to use that song as their rallying cry. We're not gonna take it. Dee Snider said, no, you will stop that right now.
Yeah. Again, this is our this is America's short memory. They don't remember the parental advisory BS that happened 35 years ago.
So then the Ukrainians have started using that song as their rallying cry. And D. Snyder said, "Be my guest."
That's
you may
right.
use this. Like, I never liked Twisted Sister when we were growing up, but
Well,
the
D.
more I learn
Snyder's
about that
not.
guy,
Yeah, he's yeah. Their music was kind of the of the time, but he's got a head on his shoulders and he knows how to use it.
So on the question of Vladimir Putin,
Mhm.
there's a quote that this is from 15 or 20 years ago or more, but it's a story he told a reporter about when he was a young child in St. Petersburg, grew up in a poor area, one of those Soviet concrete looking Soviet apartment buildings, just full of rats. And he said there on, and I'm not going to do a Russian accent, but imagine Vladimir Putin in Russian. There on that stair landing, I got a quick and lasting lesson in the meaning of the word cornered. There were hordes of rats in the front entryway. My friends and I used to chase them around with sticks. Once I spotted a huge rat and pursued it down the hall until I drove it into a corner. It had nowhere to run. Suddenly, it lashed around and threw itself at me. I was surprised and frightened. Now the rat was chasing me. So if this is a pretty perilous time right now.
Yeah.
If Putin is that cornered rat, what's that look like? What's he gonna do?
Well, hopefully not leap out, but yeah, when you're cornered, when animals are cornered, that's what they do, and he's not exactly the most human.
Well, history's full of authoritarian figures who went nuts in their last days, right?
Yeah.
So as good of a chess player as he was, as rational as he's been, as patriotic of a Russian as he's been, and just wanting the best for Russia and rebuild its former glory or whatever, whatever you might have said about that in the past, who knows what, this is his invasion of Ukraine not going well. He's 69, which is young. You can be in great health at 69, but you don't have all the faculties you used to have.
Right.
And what exactly is in his head right now?
Right.
So if you're the U.S., if you're Europe, if you're Ukraine, you fight.
Yeah.
And if you're Europe and the U.S., you help the Ukrainians fight. I'm not so sure I would do much more than what we've already done.
Right.
But we'll see.
Right.
Now you want to go watch some TikToks. What other bullets you got on there? Let's send it on a lighter note.
The only uplifting one I've got is the story of the Ukrainian grandmother who, the Russian soldiers are basically wandering around Ukraine looking for food.
Yeah.
And supposedly, if the sources are real or not, this little old lady lives alone. Russians go up begging for food. She's like, "Sure, come on in." So they go into her house and she proceeds to whoop up some food for them and loads it down with laxatives.
Ooh.
And of course, you know how it is. Almost immediately, these soldiers have the shits. So while they're taking turns back in the bathroom, she basically went outside, barred the door, and set her house on fire.
Oh my God!
Now that keeps in tradition of Saint Olga, if you know anything about her.
Wow.
Yeah. Now that may not be true, but I want to think in my heart of hearts it is true. I couldn't find anything to the contrary. So
nothing you just heard was true.
And it was the whiskey talking.
You can't blame it on us. That was the whiskey talking.
That's right.